So what these parties need to do is enable and empower people. That's what this is about. And that's not what's happening. That's the lie that the left is telling their community organizations, that we're empowering you. No, you're not. You're enslaving. Real, true empowerment starts at the local level and then the state level. And the last place it comes from is Washington, D.C. It's the opportunity now to dramatically change things. And it's required. It's not because I want to legalize drugs because I have libertarian leanings. You know, and I always say I have libertarian leanings. I am a libertarian, but most libertarians would reject me. They would reject me because they believe that I am in one thing or another. No. I'll fight for your right to do whatever it is you want. Don't make me pay for it, however. You want to do drugs? You want to string yourself out on heroin? I'm telling you right now, it's a death sentence. It's a death sentence. I know what it's like. I not heroin, but I know what it's like to be addicted.
Glenn Beck admits he does heroin. Glenn Beck admitted it. That's why he.
I know what is.
Whoa! I can't. That was a gift. Wow!
I know what
it's 3 pages of Media Matters today.
It is. I know exactly what it's like to be addicted to something. Alcohol, for me. I know exactly what it's like. It controls your life. You become a slave. You want to become a slave? Great.
Pastries for you as
well.
Yes,
pastry. Mm-hmm. Do not expect me to pay for it.
Well, I don't think libertarians expect that.
No. I'm saying that's the problem. My problem with full-on libertarian at this point is it is not a system that can be employed by those who are not moral and virtuous. Can't be. It can't be. Because you won't self-regulate yourself. The society will break down in a heartbeat. So you must find the things. Even the founders that weren't, uber religious, they all said, you've got to have something that puts a governor on people, that they impose a governor on themselves. Where are they getting their values and their virtues? They ain't going to get it from being more successful in business, believe me. They're not going to get it from being more famous. They're not going to get it from being more rich. It's not going to happen.
You don't think rich and famous is a good way to keep yourself moral?
Yeah, no. No, I don't.
Really?
I don't. Anyway, I don't want to get off the track. Anyway, the libertarian viewpoint is the future. That'll be the only one. It will be slavery of a giant state or libertarianism. The middles are going to be cut out. Because if you don't embrace the libertarian point of view and find a way for that to work, you're going to then become Europe, and you'll have communism and fascism as your left and right. We must strengthen the pole of libertarianism. We must strengthen the pole of true freedom as our founders understood it. Strengthen the states, or you will have a strengthening of the state from the left or the right. And strengthen the individuals. Beyond that, foreign policy, go back to what was on the coin, and it really in domestic policy as well. On our first coin, it did not say "In God We Trust." It said, "Mind your business." That should be our motto for a while. Mind your damn business. Foreign and domestic. Get out of my face, I'll get out of yours. If it neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg, what difference does it make to me? When it comes to our war policy and our military policy, I'm sorry, but it's really quite simple. It's 4 steps. 1, don't go unless you absolutely, positively have to go. 2, if you have to go, define and declare, because it stops all this bullcrap just lasting forever. Define and declare. 3, if you do have to go and you've defined and declare, when you go, fight to win. Win. And 4, when you do win, because you know what winning looks like, because you've declared and defined. Come home. Period. The GOP candidates last night at this debate that was on Fox, and I didn't see anybody that jumped out at me, but I also saw some things that I liked. I don't know why we have to go to the heroin questions. That's the way we're always trying to scare people off of libertarians. And in fact, I'm going to take this phone call here real quick. Mark in Albany. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, Glenn. Look, I want to help you out. I'm not convinced that you truly are a libertarian, and I'll tell you why.
All right.
So the concept of virtue is not something that I hear in the framework of libertarianism, as I've understood it.
No, that's right. You have to go back to the founders' understanding of libertarianism to hear the word virtue.
Right, exactly. So like Patrick Henry said, if you don't mind, let me just read one quick
Sure.
sentence. He said, well, whether they prove a blessing or a curse will depend on the use which our people make of this blessing, which a gracious God has bestowed on us. If they're wise, they'll be great and happy. If they're of contrary character, they'll be miserable. Righteousness alone can exalt them as a nation. That's virtue.
Yes.
And you know, like, the virtue is the abstinence from vice. It's conforming, it's self-governance, conforming to a life of a moral law.
Yes.
I don't hear that in libertarianism, but I do hear that from you, and I believe that's what you want in others. So there's this disconnect. You say you're a libertarian, but I don't. It's
well, that's because, right, because libertarianism has just been about freedom, man. It's not. You can't just have freedom. That's democracy.
Agree.
What does democracy look like? Oh, I'll show you what democracy looks like. It's the Middle East. That's what happens. You spiral out of control. There's always somebody that wants to have power over somebody else, and unless you have power over yourself, someone will fill that role.
Well, virtue has to go. It's not just virtue in itself. Virtue, you got to have. It's not just democracy itself. It's democracy plus that virtue.
Yes.
That virtue is the key component.
Right, but while Glenn, you've said a million times, Glenn, that you want people to be virtuous, you want people to have moral and have that sort of. You also allow for the fact that some people don't want that, and if they want to be idiots, in their own lives, you have to allow for that to some degree.
Do you know why I was? Do you know why I was late or almost late for the show this morning?
There seems to be a lot of traffic out. I wonder if it's because they said they're going to bomb the trains.
Yeah, well, that and I also was emailing this morning. I got an email from Penn Jillette. Penn Jillette does not like people of faith. He thinks people like me are dopes. I think he is sadly mistaken. Mm-hmm. But he wrote one of the nicest emails to me I've received in quite some time, and we disagree on things. But I hope he doesn't mind. I just share one line. Because of our friendship, I have hope for the future. Because we both disagree with each other, but yet we can be civil to each other. And we can still, do things together from time to time. That's what libertarianism should be. And Penn Jillette is a guy who understands virtue. He understands. He's never had a beer in his life. Never had a beer in his life. Now, I don't think you don't have to never have a beer in your life. I mean, Stu, you're a virtuous guy. You're drunk like 10:30 every. Well, you're halfway there now. You're almost in the bag now.
Especially during this program, as often as I can get there.
Right, right. It's weird. You stop drinking after you leave me. But
it's weird.
It's really strange.
I don't know what that means. Probably nothing.
Probably nothing. But he is not a guy. He's a guy who has tried to do positive in his life. Now, I don't agree with him. But you don't have to tear each other apart, and he's trying to do positive in his life. Too many people understand libertarianism as only freedom. Freedom comes with great responsibility, personal responsibility, not collective responsibility. And Mark, I'm not sure if you're on my side or the libertarian side of get out of our corner here. Are you on that side, or are you saying that the libertarians need to understand the freedom and the responsibility thing?
I think what I'm saying is if I heard more from the visible libertarians, the two last night specifically, if I heard from them what I hear from you, I would be more open to the libertarian position.
But see, here's the problem. Most people on the libertarian side are just as bigoted about people like me as they say people like, I don't know, Mitt Romney or whoever, some candidate.
Yeah, I would say most. I don't think it's fair to say most, but I do think that there are a lot of the active ones in particular.
Lot,
yeah.
Because they become militant that God must be chased out. No, excuse me. As long as I'm not trying to round you up on the street, again, Thomas Jefferson, if my neighbor believes there are 24 gods or no God, as long as it doesn't break my leg nor pick my pocket, what difference is it to me? Now, that's on the religion side. The virtue side requires, you must have the virtue side. You must have the honor side, the merit side, because if you don't, then I have to support you, and you're picking my pocket. If you're strung out on heroin, you're more likely to then break my leg for my wallet. You're going to break my leg and pick my pocket. So that's where you have to have some regulation. Penn Jillette, he self-regulates. He's an atheist that self-regulates. God bless him. God bless him. A true American that is a positive force in America. I know people who are deeply religious don't live their religion at all. Well, what difference is what are you doing? I know people who are not of my faith that I have profound respect for. You know who one person of faith that I have more respect for than most is David Barton. David Barton, I didn't even know he was not an evangelical. I just always assumed that he was. And I said to him, at one point, David, evangelicals, help me understand X, Y, and Z. And he said, well, I can't speak for them. He said, you should ask so-and-so or so-and-so. And I said, you're not an evangelical? And he said, no.
What is he? Does it matter?
I think he responded something along the lines of, I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, because David Barton is, by the way, if you don't know,
historian.
He's a historian. He looks back at it. He has the largest collection of documents outside of what?
Outside of the Library of Congress.
Yeah, founding documents. I mean, this guy. I mean, he knows his stuff.
Right. He's a Christian, a deeply rooted Christian, but he'll stand with anyone. He understands the Father Abraham story, the story of I think it was Whitfield. That was eventually told on the first session of Congress, where they said, well, who are you going to, we got to say an opening prayer. And somebody stood up and said, well, I can't pray with him because he's a Quaker. And the Quaker stood up and said, well, I can't, because you're a, I don't know, Presbyterian or whatever. And they argued, and it was breaking down. And I don't remember now who it was. Was it Franklin? You remember this story, Stu? One of them stood up and said, I'll pray with any man. I'll pray with any man. And then he looked to the guy who was the most unlike him and said, will you do it? And the two of them joined hands and they started to pray. And that prayer lasted for like 2 hours or some ridiculous amount. And it was a moment where everyone got together. That's the way we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be together, working together. And look, if that leads you to a better life, well, I might disagree with it. And I might think that, well, you're misguided on that. And I will share it with you, but I'm not going to force it down your throat. I'm not going over to Penn Jillette's house and bring a Bible over and say, now, Penn. I'm not going to do that. There's a wall of resistance. I will live my life in a way to where he says, man, that guy is really happy and this really affected him. And maybe religion isn't so bad. Because if religion can do that to you, maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah, and if he doesn't come there, then that's his call.
That's his call.
Yeah, and we can all live happily.
If he's not
ever
picking
after.
my pocket or breaking my leg, if he's not trying to put my faith into a little box, I'm not going to try to put his faith into a little box or his faith in that there is nothing but man. Why would I do that?
And you've talked about this a million times, Glenn, but you go back even to the founders. We call them the founders, like they're this one group that all moved in the same direction. They had significant disagreements on almost everything.
On religion.
Yeah.
On religion. They, on their, not on faith. See, here's the problem. Too many people mistake faith for religion. Faith is between you and God. Religion is man's best understanding of how to increase that faith. Faith is personal, and you can be a person of deep and profound faith and be good and decent and a help to your society and your country and not be of my religion. Both are personal. One, you can argue back and forth on. The other, no. And people of faith must stand together, no matter what their religion is. And that is, if somebody else can come up with, if Penn, Gillette, comes up with a system that shows how people can be decent and show people that, because if you are truly a libertarian, you truly believe in freedom, as our last caller said, it's up to you with what you do with it. Now, what is the best system to make sure? Our founders thought it was church. But if you don't want to do the church thing, okay, that's fine. I mean, it's worked for man since the beginning of time. But if you have another thing that works, good. Then share it with others and do it. But you need to help people be strong as individuals, be empowered, not beholden to something that they always have to make a constant choice between good and evil or good and bad, right and wrong. That's all that life is a series of choices between good and bad, right and wrong. That's it. And you have to live with the ramification of those choices. Now, can you help people make those choices and differentiate between good and bad and show why that's good and bad for all of society? Not just because you're going to burn in hell. That doesn't last. You cannot be ruled by fear. You have to see what a positive influence it is in somebody's life and how it will impact others. Real, true liberty comes from joy, not from fear. If somebody can come up with something that helps others regulate their own life without having to have a master over them, I endorse it 110%. But we must be people of virtue, and we must be people of merit. And when the libertarians can accept that, and when the Republicans can accept that man must be free, and there is no one above them, when you can get those two sides to understand those two things, you've got a winning candidate.